Hello, I'm Josh. Welcome to Hazel's Adventures. This is our 1951 Kaiser Deluxe we call Hazel, and we want you to come right along with us on our adventures.
Good morning, everyone. It is actually a few days later. I took a day to rest because I'm not as spry as I used to be. Hurts my back laying on the ground quite a bit and stuff. So today we're going to start tearing the motor apart. Should be able to get everything off of it, hopefully. The way everything else has been going, who knows. We're not tearing it completely apart. I do not plan on taking the head off. It's fine, no leaks, nothing, and just really no need to. I do have a gasket if I need to, but let's hope we don't need to do that. I mean, I don't even plan on moving the distributor or nothing. But what we are taking off, intake exhaust manifold, valve pan. We're not taking off the water pump because I already had that off when I got the car because it was having some overheating issues I had to take care of. So that's all good. We are going to paint all this stuff. Everything on this side is already off. We'll be taking off the balancer, or if you even call it that on this, the timing cover, all the front stuff of that part's going to be coming off, getting new gaskets and all that. We're going to take off the fuel pump, and it's not going back on. We're going to put a block off plate because on the car we just use an electric fuel pump, and I even have extras in case those go out. So I'm not spending the money on a same thing like $180 for a fuel pump when what I have works and I just don't need it. We will be taking the oil pan off, flipping her upside down, checking all the bearings, making sure there's no play. Going to be replacing all those gaskets, everything down there. So let's get to work and start pulling her apart. So the intake is off, intake and exhaust manifold. Got the fuel pump off too. I didn't find anything too unexpected as far as pulling it off here. Intake runners are a little gassy, which that was, I guess, somewhat unexpected, but everything else looks pretty good on the engine and stuff. I didn't know if this motor and transmission had been worked on or at least pulled out of the car, which I still can't guarantee it, but there's definitely been some work to the intake. Found a weld here. It's probably fixing a crack. One of these little bolts down here that's on the back side is broken off, so somebody's worked on that, separating this before. We are not going to be separating this intake and exhaust. It doesn't leak. We're going to clean it up. I got some high temp paint that works really well that I've used before, so we know that's been off. When I was taking the transmission out, here's the bolts that were holding it together. You can see that guy right there is not quite like the others, so somebody's at least been in there too. Unlikely they would just replace one bolt because they noticed it was missing. I guess if it was leaking there or something, they might have, but definitely been people in there, which it's been over 70 years, so that's not to be completely unexpected. Plus, you know, it runs great. It did. I'm just sealing things up, adjusting the valves, which the valve pan is the next thing to be taken off, which is this right here. Once we get that off, the lifters and valve springs will be accessible, and we can see what valve has been making noise. Because if you ever heard Hazel run, you know she's kind of pecky. And that's one thing we're mainly adjusting with this too, because we want all that noise gone. And you're supposed to do it about every 7,000 miles on these engines, and who knows how long it's been. So we'll get this off and we'll take a look at the valves. The valve pan is off. Looks decent, but as I was saying, Hazel pecks real bad. Look at this guy right here. Holy cow. It's supposed to be, the lash is supposed to be set at like 18 thousandths. Yeah, that's a big one. And there's actually a few, like that one you can't tell because the valve's up. And there's oil in between some of them. but there are a lot. Like that one's pretty bad too, but there's just oil stuck between it and the valve tip. But no wonder she rattled. And this right here was the worst spot that you could definitely hear it. Man, now I gotta wonder if that's wear on the cam or the lifter. I mean, these are all just solid little tappets, so there really ain't a lot I can do about it. I mean, I can adjust it out, but if there's wear, it just is what it is. I'll check out the cam lobes and stuff when I get the oil pan and get it flipped upside down. It's also something that concerns me a little bit. We have these baffles, and we got one there, and there's nothing here. Is it supposed to be there? I do not know. I'm gonna have to look it up. We don't have any problem. I mean, we got 50 pounds of oil pressure all the time. The only thing this would do is those little holes where oil would spray out would be deflected by this and go directly into those holes instead of splashing onto the pan and splashing everywhere. I don't really think it hurt anything. I mean, it's been running fine. Like I said, it's got lots of oil pressure, but I am going to find out if there's supposed to be 3 in there. I mean, even if there is, it's not going to get one back, but better to know than not know. So we're definitely going to have to adjust these valves, which this was a major point. But man, I didn't expect that one to be that bad. I knew she was knocking, but wow. All right, now I'm going to continue taking things off. I'm not going to adjust these quite yet. So I'm going to get everything apart before I worry about all that. All right, the front cover is off and the front balancer pulley. I did end up taking the water pump off. I was going to take this front plate off. I mean, I don't have to paint it, and I'm not like pulling it all the way apart. But what concerns me is this guy. If we can focus on it. That's a bolt from the inside. And the oil pan lines up right behind that. Not sure. I mean, even if I had everything out of the way, I don't believe there'd be a way to get to that guy. I don't know. We're gonna find out here in a few minutes. So as everything's ready to take the oil pan off, because as far as I'm tearing this part down, I don't really want to pull that timing chain and everything off there. It's in good shape though. Nice and tight. Everything looks good. I mean, even shiny behind it. You can tell though, like these scratches right here. I wasn't even around that part. I mean, I clearly took the bolts out, but there's been people in here before, so clearly the motor and stuff's been out before, because it looks like somebody was cleaning up a gasket surface or something. I doubt there's any way it would be that way after 70 some years from the factory. So we're gonna get ready to flip her over, pull the oil pan off, hopefully figure out what that guy is, and then we'll inspect the rods and mains and see if there's any markings on the crank like it's been worked or anything. If we can get that all apart, then that's as far as we're tearing it apart. It'll be ready to start cleaning up and re-gasketing and get it ready to paint. So we shall see. Well, the bottom oil pan is off. And I was thinking, man, everything looks great, which most of it does. Even look, try and zoom in. Well, we can tell it's not focusing very well. Right there, cylinder walls look great. Great cross hatching. Everything's nice and tight, looks good. Until I seen this. And on the other side, that sure does look like a broken piston. and that really sucks. So I am going to have to take the head off, and I'm going to have to take this piston out and see. I'm hoping that's just like weird casting marks, but it sure looks like a crack to me. Well, I mean, I have all the gaskets to put it back together, but that is just disheartening. All the other ones look fantastic. Everything's tight, no movement in any of the bearings or anything. And that cross hatching, I'd have to say this engine was rebuilt, or just there's no way it'd be in that good a shape after that long. They look great. That looks like just out of the machine shop. Sorry if I was just pointing at the. And even the bottom of those pistons and everything look fantastic, except for that. Man, that just sucks. So now I'm going to have to pull the head and pull this piston. And the head is off. There are some issues. I mean, nothing unexpected, but cylinder walls still look really good. And there was carbon, but there's no lip you can feel there. Like, it's not got a lot of wear on it since whenever this had some machine work, or I don't think that's original, but I'll pull the piston out here in a minute. But a few of the issues, seems a little lean on a couple cylinders on these exhaust valves. Right here in the middle, there is 2 exhaust valves next to each other. That creates a lot of heat in that one spot. And if you see on this gasket, that has been leaking between those 2 spots in that cylinder. You can't notice it a lot on the block, but it is more noticeable on the head. So we'll fix that problem. Everything else pretty good, other than buildup in the engine. Like, that's completely blocked. That's what, when I said earlier that I had the water pump off because of overheating issues when I got it, that's what it was. And I had flushed it out, but clearly it didn't flush out that well. So now it's all apart, I can take care of that also, which it hasn't overheated since then, but still got to get it out of there. So I'm gonna turn it back on its side, take that piston loose, and hope for the best, but know that it's broken. So that'd be this guy right here. We're gonna leave it down where I can take the rod cap off and pop her out. So, great news. These funny casting marks are actually just funny casting marks and not cracks. I don't know why they're there. None of the other pistons look like that. Almost looks like a repair or something, which would be unusual. But we are able to just put this piston back in. I don't really have any fear of it catastrophically blowing to pieces or anything. Those are still very strange to me. I don't know why they're like that, but there is not a crack there. Did find out the motor, which I know I had said, oh, it's never been pulled out or nothing. Yeah, I was wrong. It's definitely been bored 30 over. The bearings are 30 over, which they do have some wear on them. They don't look quite as good, but as long as we'll keep good oil in it and good oil pressure, I'm not concerned about it. We do want to take Hazel on longer trips, but it's not going to be like thousands of miles, so I have no fear of reusing this piston. And thank goodness, because I didn't want to get another one. All right, we got the piston back in, torque back down. That's all good, thank goodness. View of the bottom, because everything actually looked really good. Cam lobes all look excellent. Not much wear. Now we got to take off these back seal plates. And the front one, because the gaskets for the oil pan go under them. Get that done, work on the rear main seal, which is going to be a rope kind, which will be under this back plate. Then we got to start taking off all the gasket material and cleaning this thing up. That is going to be a huge task. We got to get it looking pretty. So when we get to taking those few things apart, and we're almost to the point of somewhat being able to start putting stuff back together. Okay, so I'm going to end up having to take the cam chain off because I do have to get this plate off. There's a gasket behind it. Oil pan gasket kind of goes underneath parts that attach to this, and I don't want any leaks, so I have to get all the other gasket material off. So I have to take this off, and to do this, I have to take this off. Well, I need to know how to get it back in time, which, I mean, that's not necessarily difficult on engines. They have timing marks. It's something people concern themselves about a lot, and I've seen people not want to work on an engine just simply because they know how to get it back in time, and they're like, oh, it's difficult. It's not. On this one, no, it is silly. I have, just like the 30 bolts on the torque converter, some things I don't understand. The way the timing marks on this engine, we have a little mark right here, and then we have another one down here. And then if you're trying to line them up in any way on the motor, because a lot of them line up together, they'll be here and here, or they'll go in a straight line. No, these right here on the engine says 9 links. So with your piston at top dead center, from each mark to each mark is 9 links of the timing chain, which is just, that's one of the weirdest ways. So if you count these, when you have your piston at top dead center, your cam timing, sorry, can't speak, you put and count 9 links. So you would count 9 links back and then have them lined up on your crank and your cam. Just thought that was kind of silly, but a lot of people do it differently. This is not a way I recommend, but if you know how it is, it's not that difficult to get it back together. Well, that's going to do it for today. I'll get the front plate off tomorrow because the socket I need is in my truck, and my truck's not here at the moment. Right now I'm going to pick everything up. I got parts and nuts and bolts and everything everywhere. So I'm going to clean up, and we will get back onto it tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. We are back at it. We have the front off, the motor mount plate, timing chain's been removed. Now I can get to everything. So what I'm going to do now is make a huge mess. Going to snug the oil pan back on and the valve pan. And we're going to cover this puppy in degreaser and pressure wash the crap out of it with everything on it. Get as much grease off as possible. Then I'll brake clean it, and then I'll do it all again until I can get everything off of it. Then the arduous task of getting all the gaskets off and getting it ready to put back together. Hopefully will be some reassembly today. Not going to show you any of that because it's going to be all back together and pretty the next time you see it. So, at least after the cleaning part. Well, thankfully, Hazel's engine is all put back together, sealed up, painted. So next step will be to start working on that transmission and get it all torn apart, make sure its leaks are all fixed. Hopefully everything on the engine is good, doesn't leak. Never mind the paint on the spark plugs. That was just to cover the holes. I have new spark plugs to put in. But my week off is up. And at least thank goodness I got the motor back together. There is still tons to do on Hazel. Transmission, we got a lot of in under the hood work. Still got to do some stuff to the front end. So there's going to be several videos still coming, but unfortunately I have to get back to work, like actual work. But so in the afternoons we'll be still working on her. But at least this engine is done, and I hopefully will never have to touch it once I get it back in there again, because that was a little bit difficult. So in the process of replacing all these gaskets, we did at least find out a few interesting things about Hazel's engine. She was bored 30 over, so that probably gave us a few actual more cubic inches. Might be a 229 now, probably. The bearings had been ground, or the crank had been ground 30 over as well, which that's actually quite a bit for a crank. But all that machine work had been done to it. She had ended up with a new timing chain in it when they did that. They probably did cam bearings. They may have even done different valve seats. So that was a lot of work that I don't now have to worry about doing, because it doesn't seem to have a lot of time on it after that. We do know that Hazel sat for 40 plus years. So this engine work was probably done late 70s, early 80s. And then shortly after that, it sat. Who knows why? I mean, we'll never be able to find out, but at least that was work that was done. It kept this engine in good condition. And now that I get back in there, she should be good for a long, long time.